DeFi Orbit is mainly focused on liquidity providers because most of the softwares out there, they're really good at telling you how much you have in your wallet based on token times value, but they don't really give you the data that you need.
There are many positions which I have completely lost track of, and there are a couple of maybe $100, maybe $1,000 stuck in some old protocol from 2021 or 2020.
It's not only pulling data from the blockchain, Max, it's also integrating custom formulas and calculations to get to that node.
The paradigms of DeFi, even though we are seeing more and more projects launching, the mechanisms behind them have simplified or at least been standardized more over time.
There is an advertised APR versus your actual APR. When you're deploying money into liquidity pools, you want to know what was your daily, weekly, monthly yield. You want to know what you're in range of out of range.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Odyssey Believe in Something podcast. Today we are joined by Davis, who is building DeFi Orbit, which is a multi-chain portfolio tracking tool. Davis, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Max. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great having you on. With the markets picking up again, retail interest, pro-tail interest, and small institutional interest rising in crypto and on-chain participation again, portfolio tracking is a very important step in this whole investment journey. In the past, it's been very challenging, along with other hurdles in the DeFi user experience, to keep track of where positions are at, what the value of them is, how they are developing. From personal experience, there are many positions which I have completely lost track of. And there are a couple of maybe $100, maybe $1,000 stuck in some old protocol from 2021 or 2022, which I just forgot about and wasn't really able to recover them or find them. Or if I would want to find them, I would have to do a lot of manual research. So maybe DeFi Orbit will be able to solve some of these challenges going forward. Davis, do you want to start by giving a brief intro to yourself and how you ended up with the idea of DeFi Orbit?
100%, Max. And the pain that you're sharing is something that the industry feels like. If you're actually deep into DeFi or crypto altogether, you're going to go through this. So before I get to what we're building and how we're building it and why, how we're going to be different, let me walk you a little bit over my background. So my background is in tech. I've been building tech companies literally my whole professional career. In 2022, I sold my SaaS company to another company, joined that company, started working there, and then I came across DeFi. The moment I came across DeFi, I got obsessed. It was like a hit. It was like, yo, what is all these things? Like, what are L2s? What is, lending and borrowing? I was in crypto, I'll say Bitcoin since like 2017, Max, buying a little here, a little there. I didn't really want to go above Bitcoin because I feel like it was Papa. If it goes up, everything goes up. If it goes down, everything goes down. So I really had no intention to diversify. But then I got to one point where I was like, there has to be more out there. Like, from technology standpoint, from like how things work, like not only Bitcoin. So I started getting that bug, Max. And then in 2020, late 2023, I came across DeFi. I learned about like different protocols. I learned about, how things work in the back end. And that was obsession time. I remember I would come home from work and spend like 3 hours Monday to Monday just studying DeFi, learning about liquidity pools, all this stuff. And then in early 2024, Max, I decided to leave my company, the one where I was working at. I was like, you know what? Time to switch it up and start building again. So after that, I spent a whole year just doing DeFi full time. I cannot say, Max, that I was making a living of it because you know how it is. When you learn it, you get burned. You learn a lot. Let's put it that way. But I was so obsessed. I learned about all the protocols, the stable coins. I joined a few communities, how everything worked. And then, like 8 months into it, doing it full time and diversifying into a few different positions, I noticed that it was a big pain to keep track of everything. Like I had to rely on the spreadsheets, and I had to, improve my spreadsheets on demand. I was making it like super robust, but little thing I know. It was actually I was building a system that it was very time consuming to update. And yeah, so before we go into the details, Max, that's my background in tech, doing DeFi full time for about 2 years more or less, 2 3 years now. Yeah, that was the reason why I decided like to build this product.
Seems like we got into the industry at very similar points in time, and I also started digging into DeFi more in the 2022, 2023 era when all
Yeah.
the directional upside became, let's say, much less attractive than farming yields. So back then, when you entered into the space, what tools were you using besides your spreadsheet? And leading up to now, how do you view the whole competitive landscape? Like, who's out there offering what, and more importantly, who is lacking specific features that you're trying to solve for with DeFi Orbit?
Yeah, great question. So when I started, I love to keep all of my data organized. So from day one, I had like a spreadsheets and spreadsheets, like keeping everything manually. If I'm in range, out of range, was the daily deal, monthly deal. At first I was like, wow, I'm gonna make 80%. I made it. Like I was really thinking about a Porsche, how I'm gonna pay for it using DeFi. So I started using spreadsheets. That was my first thing. Then the moment that I started expanding, I realized it was harder to track. So I will rely on multiple tools. For example, the bank. The bank is amazing if you're on EVM and you want to see your holdings. However, issues that I was facing with the bank were related to liquidity pools. So DeFi Orbit is mainly focused on liquidity providers because most of the softwares out there, like Zero, the bank, Step Finance, all these companies, they're really good at telling you how much you have in your wallet based on token times value, but they don't really give you the data that you need. For example, what's your PNL, your actual PNL? What's your actual APR? Sometimes the DEXs Max, they will advertise 120%, 150%, 80% APR. But as we both know, every 24 hour that number changes based on the volume of the previous day and how many fees were collected. So there is an advertised APR versus your actual APR. When you're deploying money into liquidity pools, you want to know what's beyond the APR. What was your daily, weekly, monthly deal? You want to know, are you in range or out of range? Every day that you spend out of range, you're losing money because that money that you have is no longer working. What are the best pools you have? What are the worst performer pools you have? Is the impermanent laws making that up for you to stay in that position? So there are a lot of metrics, Max, that you need to have in order to do this right. I remember losing thousands of dollars, which I see it as an experience now, due to not having the right information in front of me. Uh, back a few months ago, back in April when the market went down, I got liquidated. It was painful. And it is still painful every time I see Ethereum going up and I think about how many Ethereum I lost. But I wasn't giving it attention. The market dropped and I got no notifications. I got no alerts that I was about to get liquidated, and I felt the pain. So because of that, Max, that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to solve. There are some tools out there, as I mentioned before, that you can leverage to get close to this. Like you can leverage, for example, Step Finance if you have something on Solana, or you can leverage Ethereum. I mean, sorry, the bank. If you're on Ethereum, maybe Revert. Revert is great, but once again, it's only for Uniswap. So the moment that you start expanding into different protocols, different chains, that's when you have to rely on spreadsheets, and that's what we're trying to solve.
I agree on a lot of points there. Personally, I find it very annoying that you have to be fractionalized between all of these different portfolio tracking tools, even to get an overview of all your holdings and the dollar value of your positions, even in one ecosystem. If you take the EVM, the Ethereum Virtual Machine chain, so that is ETH Layer 1, all the Layer 2s, Avalanche, Sonic, also Hyperliquid. For example, DBank, it took them months, or at least a few months, after the launch of the Hyper EVM and the whole Hyperliquid chain
For
to
example,
integrate them. You had money on there, and if you're every every serious DeFi user is using more than one wallet,
yeah,
stemming from OPSEC reasons, and like there are a bunch of there's a lot of rationale to do so, and you will inevitably forget about certain positions if there is no central place where you can store and access all of the logs of what you did, where your money is, and what your real return is. I think a huge value unlock would be if you manage to decipher and in some cases debunk the advertised APRs of certain yield protocols. May it be decentralized exchanges where you are LPing, may it be certain other yield forms where they either only display the APY instead of the APR or add some implied value of their own points program into the displayed APR and all of these different workarounds to, yes, make things shine a little more than they actually are. I think that would be a
Exactly.
huge unlock. For example, but yeah, maybe go a little deeper into the methodology you're applying there. Was I was thinking about in the past is if you have any LP pool on a decentralized exchange, would it be possible to just pull the data from all the past participants and wallets that have entered and exited this pool and just compare the starting value and the end value of the amount they had in there and sort of at least get an idea of the historical real APRs versus what has been advertised there? Or how are you trying to integrate all of this data?
That is amazing. That's a great question. So right now, if you want to do it today, I know Revert gives you that information. You can go into one pool, and lots of respect for towards the Revert finance team. They're building a product, or they have built a product that is different to ours, but they already give you like all the information on like how many pools join, how many people join that pool, what is the return. On our end, what we're trying to do is actually pull from the blockchain through the RPCs. But in addition to that, we're also implementing lots of custom logics so we can calculate, for example, from when you enter the pool, how much money have you been generating on a daily basis? We're gonna go historical, so it's not only like what you have today, and then based on that, we're gonna calculate your returns versus the advertised APR from the pool and what's your actual APR. So it's not only pulling data from the blockchain, Max, it's also integrating custom formulas and calculations to get to that number. As you know, numbers is just math, right? So if you can get to the right formula, you'll be able to get pretty far. That's what we're planning on doing, at least for V1. For V2, we have a few more things that we're gonna keep expanding on, but for V1, our intention is to just create, launch this product that is gonna help you make more money by knowing how to save money, getting notifications in real time, and the actual data that you need. So yeah, more than just a product for anyone. I'll say it's more for like DeFi investors that want to level up and step it up.
So, what is the one supposed to look like? Is it solely focused on LP positions? What are the different DEXs and protocols featured on there? And what's the feature capability in terms of notifications and maybe some execution abilities?
So for V1, right now we're setting up the ground. So we're gonna be supporting EVM and Solana. EVM is gonna be Uniswap and Aave. We already have a list of different protocols that we're gonna be supporting based on user interviews. So before we get started with this product, we interview about 48 people, like one-on-ones. Max, you were one of them, so I appreciate you. You were one of the early ones. And then we gather all of that information. We made a list of how many protocols are being used, what are the most popular ones. So for V1, we're going to start with the most requested ones, which are Uniswap and Aave. Uniswap, so you can see, your positions, all the information that you need, like PNL, APR, daily geo, rebalancing, which is, not applicable for Uniswap. You'll be able to see it there, range, all that information. And then for lending and borrowing, you're going to be able to see, for example, your TVL, how much money you have left to borrow against your collateral. And notifications, you're going to be able to integrate notifications via SMS, Discord, Telegram, email, you name it. So if you're about to get liquidated or if your TVO is below X point, you get notified and that way you can do something. So that's our intention for EVM. For Solana, we want to go to market with Orca and we want to go to market with Camino Finance. So 1-1-1-1, and then from there we're gonna keep expanding and adding more based on demand.
I think, I mean, even if you're just starting out on the EVM side of things, if you were able to cover and properly display and reflect some DeFi paradigms like looping strategies where people deposit an asset, borrow something else against it, then swap it back into the asset they first supplied and kind of loop it up because their expected return from that provided asset, that collateral, is higher than the borrowing rate there. For example, if you look up these looping positions on DBank, it just sums up the entire position, and it is very hard to get any proper insight into how this position is developing, how it compares to the rest of the portfolio. I think similarly for everything regarding Pendle, I find it fairly hard to track on DBank, where it's not the challenge to just see, okay, there is a position existing on Pendle, but these tools are not yet able to provide any context on what that position is doing versus what is being advertised by the underlying application. And I think this discrepancy, I mean, for us as active participants in the industry, is to some extent nice because it prevents dilution of returns, since a lot of capital is too scared to enter, and not necessarily too scared, but also just not willing to do all of this manual labor, which is understandable. But if we want to mature as an industry, I think it is very necessary to bring some standardized yield assessment frameworks and just a little more data integrity, to call it that way, to our sector.
100%. You nail it, my man. And that's what we're trying to work on.
So, looking out into the future, what are some other features you're trying to solve for and trying to offer?
So great question. So right now for DeFi Orbit, something that I'm trying to make clear is that DeFi Orbit is not necessarily just a project, it's a company. I love the DeFi space. Our team loves the DeFi space. The portfolio tracking for LPs is just one of our main products. But eventually, we'll love to bring more value to the market by coming up with other tools and platforms that can help investors. So, for example, I mean, I don't want to stray them too much, but for example, be like a ladder out strategy optimizer where you can get notified whenever you're ready to. You should be supposed to be taking some money out. We're also exploring other social areas of the product, like how can we help, for example, communities to build more value for their members by creating like this not ecosystem but like this community within DeFi Orbit, so they can like share strategies, see how, for example, the leader of the community is performing, and it can be easily tracked. So we have like a full list. We have defined up to V4 just to give you an idea of the app, but we gotta start on V1, go to market. We just wanna get our early users, get them to try it out. We're gonna make the portfolio app very user-centric. So we love like for our users to say, hey, let's vote for the next protocol. And then our team will just put in the work and launch it. That's our vision. There is more that I would love to share, Max. I just feel like it's not the right time, man.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be captured. I mean, on the one hand, there's a market for, let's say, a Bloomberg terminal of DeFi, which focuses a little more into integrity data and analytics. I think that is to some extent what the DeFi llamas, Nansen, etc., are trending towards. Then, on the other hand, there's also, if you're familiar with Axiom on the meme coin and trading on hyperliquid front, I mean, they're one of the fastest startups to make 100 million in revenue, which is extremely impressive because they sort of appeared out of nowhere, and they are able to charge insane amounts of fees on top of the trade execution they offer. And if you were able to build a similar product for DeFi, I think that could create quite a bit of value. I mean, of course, you cannot charge the same type of fees there because with meme coins, people are gambling on a 10x, a 20x. With DeFi, people are speculating on a 10 to 20% return. So you cannot charge the
Maybe
same.
40, maybe 50, Depends on the day.
It depends
Depends
on
on the
the
wallet.
situation. Yeah, but I mean, if we
I
are
hear
real
you,
about
I
it,
hear you.
I
Yeah,
think most of the people who are targeting 30 to 40% are not able to reach it, at least not with size. And what we've seen over and over in the past is how slippage, how entry and exit fees are just eating up returns left and right. And I think that is something, yeah, that needs to be improved as well. I think there are some interesting innovations on that side out there too. For example, Infinify, I think we both know Rob also from the Denver days at ETH Denver. for I mean, most of their investments are in Pendle PTs, and they are automating the entire rollover. So that is already taking away a huge burden from the end user because you don't have to manually execute this stuff anymore. You don't have to eat the slippage. You don't have to eat the gas costs on a consistent basis if you're able to pool all of this capital into sort of one unified vault, to put it that way. Even that is not technically the correct term there. But yeah, I think a lot of UX improvements, abstractions, etc., are being built right now. So it's pretty exciting to see where the space is going. Yeah. So what does your customer base look like? What does the business model of DeFi Orbit look like? What are you looking forward to on that side?
So, great questions. For the customer base, for V1 at least, our main audience that we want to serve are liquidity providers. As you know, DeFi has a lot of different branches. We have the people that do arbitrage, we have the people that do point farmings, we have the people that do liquidity providing, straight up leverage. There are like so many branches. We want to cater to the ones that do liquidity providing. That's our V1. When it comes to the level of expertise, we are making it friendly even for new people in the space because we believe, DeFi is going to keep growing, but it will take at least 1 or 2 years for the people that are joining today to really ramp up and fully understand how it works. So we are making it friendly for new users.
I think it depends. I mean, if you're coming from a traditional finance background, I think it is easy to grasp some of the basic concepts. And arguably, the educational content around DeFi has become much more accessible and much more available versus a couple of years ago. And the paradigms of DeFi, even though we are seeing more and more projects launching, the mechanisms behind them, I think, have simplified or at least been standardized more over time because the to grab where the yields are coming from today is much less abstract than it was in 2021, 2022, where everything was just this vaporware token incentives out of nowhere. And yes, on the financial math side, you have much more sophisticated, much more complex mechanisms now. But as at least if you're thinking from first principles and if you're actually looking at the journey of $1 invested in DeFi through these different protocols, it is much more understandable where the yield is actually coming from.
But you see, that's an advanced question. Where is the yield coming from? That's not a question that you learn or ask, the moment that you learn about DeFi. And the reason why I said 1 to 2 years is because the journey is usually, you start with a meme coin, you get burned, you leave, maybe you come back, okay, let me get serious. Or maybe you start straight up with Bitcoin. But from day one to actually liquidity providing, asking questions like what are oracles, where is the yield coming from? If you have no background in finance, everybody has a different journey, but it usually takes a while for you to get like comfortable and deploying money. So that's what I meant. But yeah, so that's our audience, people that are doing liquidity providing. Later on, we're gonna keep expanding into a broader audience. I believe that our main value proposition is gonna be for the people that actually have at least 3, 4 pools. They're managing different chains. They don't want to use the spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are only as good as your knowledge of the spreadsheets, right? If you don't know how to do formulas, or if you're not using the right data provider for the prices, then you could be down 10, 15%, and maybe there's a lag with the data and you don't know. So there is like chaotic way of doing the spreadsheets. So those are the people that we want to sell the most right now, is the ones that want you to have one place, everything, what matters, what not, quick decisions, database, decisions as well. When it comes to pricing, Max, we are not gonna go to market as just a free protocol or anything like that. We're not gonna have a smart contracts on V1, which means like super safe, no exposure. You can connect your wallet to through Reown, for example, and we're gonna be able to index everything from the blockchain automatically, so you don't have to be entering like your wallets. You can just add them in there and you'll see what you have. But we're gonna be charging on a monthly subscription. That's what we're gonna be charging. We believe that what we're building is gonna be bringing value to investors. And if you're serious about your DeFi management, then I know 100% with confidence that we're gonna make you more money by giving you the tools that you need to properly manage it. So that's our business model for B1. We're exploring other options. once we introduce the smart contracts, like maybe taking a little transaction fee from the harvest, but like that's for later. For V1, we just want to focus on value and get value in return as well.
Has your journey of building DeFi Orbit influenced any of your own investing behavior in DeFi so far? Like, have you been able to get any additional insight into your LP positions, or are you better understanding the space now than you did when you first came across the idea?
100%. Because, before DeFi Orbit, I had my spreadsheet. I knew what it needed and all this stuff. But now that we're building DeFi Orbit, it's like getting into the background, like how did I get to this number? How is that formula working? What is this coming from? What is the pulse volume? How can I find it? So like I've been getting really into the background. So it has helped me understand better what I need to do because our product is still in development. I can't really use it right now for my own portfolio. So every time I have to update my personal portfolio, I'll go on and I'll be like, okay, we're missing maybe a little update that will solve this. Like, how can I solve my own problems into one software? And everybody in our team, they do DeFi as well, so it's cool to see them coming up with their own ideas on like how it could be improved because they want to use it for their own portfolio management.
Yeah, I think that is one of the advantages of building in DeFi is that the space is still so nascent and so immature
Yeah,
that if you're just playing around on your own and
yeah,
clicking buttons, you will see what the space is lacking. And you can build from a very native understanding of what the issues are. Versus you compare that to some product managers at Meta, Alphabet, whatever. I mean, it's
yeah,
like they have to come up with some obscure ideas, then try to somehow A B test these new features on their user group. And there is very little tangible connection to the value creation that is
that's
happening
right.
there, or frankly, that is not happening there. Yeah. So how do you compare yourself with what is out there in terms of like Rebirth Finance or Aperture? Do you view these as a competitor if you're trying to also vertically expand on the stack, maybe to offer execution and position management natively in DeFi Orbit in the future? Or how do you view the entire competitive landscape there?
I don't see them as competitors. Once again, like I have lots of respect for Revert. Aperture, I've seen them way before like I think they race and all this stuff. I honestly don't really like this is personal preference to give away my positions and let them like do the rebalancing and all this stuff automatically. So I never use that part of the DeFi portfolio management, and that's not something that I'm planning on doing either. I know River, part of their business model is on compounding. Like you delegate your positions, they compound it, reinvest the fees, they take a cut from it. That's one of their business models, and they're also solely focused on EVM. I noticed that they're expanding into PancakeSwap, and they also expanded into Aerodrome, which I love. But different business model. Like I don't really want to get into the rebalancing business, compounding, none of that stuff. At least that's not part of our current, uh, you know, our current roadmap. But we want to provide the data, which is always solid.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think even though if I look back at, for example, EFCC last year in Brussels or also
Yeah,
ETH Denver, there seems to be an abundance of data infrastructure, graphing, whatever projects out there. It's still, from a user perspective, there's still a lot of room for improvement. I mean, again,
oh yeah,
I don't have any technical background. I am solely confronted with DeFi from a native user perspective. And for me, it's still very annoying from time to time to navigate certain things or to kind of retroactively understand what actually happened in that transaction. And I think on the data provision side, you can do a lot of the work that is required for the narrative of chain abstraction and just improving user experience there. So yeah, is there any outlook you want to share on DeFi as a whole and DeFi Orbit? Where can people find you? Any comments?
yeah. So I'll say on DeFi, it's fun. I was just chatting about this before our call. Like I get on Telegram, I get overwhelmed with notifications, but I start like reading them, and I'm like, man, we are so freaking early. Like if you go on DeFi Llama, for example, and you open the graph, you'll see that DeFi is currently like bouncing back to all-time heights. 2020 was crazy, but like recent all-time heights. And it's just insane to see like JP Morgan, 4.7 trillion company now willing is looking to give you like loans against your crypto, against your Bitcoin. Man, that was crazy. And by the way, that's good for them, but like, why would you pay 10% APR when you can just get it on Aave for like 0.5%, But that's a whole conversation for another day. The point is, this is gonna be huge for the space. We now see Apple unlocking their Apple Pay, which is going to accelerate the possibility of you paying straight up with your crypto using your phone. I went to Europe recently. I rarely had cash. Everything was Apple Pay. So you see like how everything is connecting. It's extremely exciting. If you're a builder, then like Max said, there are lots of opportunities out there. Like this space needs builders. And I feel like what we need the most as well as builders is to build like, you know, more of like a database, I'll say, or like community, whatever, where builders can help each other. Because that's one of the things that I noticed when I was building in SaaS in Web 2. There is like an abundant amount of information. What to do, when not to do. When to hire a sales VP of sales, like when to bring a CTO. Like there is like literally content for every step of the journey from zero to unicorn if you can make it to that level. But when it comes to Web3, it's more like you're on your own, figure it out, try it out. Some people will like open up and share the information, but that's what I feel that is missing. But if you're a founder, if you want to build, there is lots of stuff that you can do. So going back to the DeFi point, I feel like DeFi, we're still early. It's super exciting to see how many things are happening. Just to give you a quick point, have you ever heard of the Sling app, Max? The Sling,
No.
Sling? Man, that is one of my favorites apps so far that I've seen. It's technically an app. You can install it on your phone. So if you want to send money to someone, let's say in whatever, well, any country of the world, they have like hundreds of countries. You can just set up your account, you can send money and they can literally get it in their bank account for free. They have no fees right now, instantly. The beautiful for 75% of the banks, depending on the country. But the beauty of that app is that it's all running in Web3 on the back end. They're using a Solana wallet. So when you load up the money, you're actually loading stable coins. And then once you withdraw, they convert it into the currency that you want. And that is like one of the best and most beautiful things that I've seen recently on how Web3 and DeFi is getting into the market without making noise about being Web3, so people can actually experience about the benefits of it. No transactions to no transactions, instant withdrawal. You're putting everything on the stable coins. You can even load up your wallet and withdraw it with no fees. That's a little nice. Instantly, that's a little nice thing that I also learned about that app. But it just makes me really excited to see where DeFi is going, the opportunities coming up. I feel like UX is gonna keep improving. Love Pendle. There was a learning curve to actually understanding it because it was a little bit overwhelming. But I feel like all that stuff is getting better now. And in the next 5 years, we're gonna be in a whole different world. So excited for what is to come. And when it comes to DeFi Orbit, if you want to learn more about DeFi Orbit, just go on DeFiOrbit.xyz. As of today, we have a wait list. We're gonna open the early access within the next 45. If you join the wait list, we also have like discounts so you don't pay the full price, like special free trials, all this stuff. So just go on DeFiOrbit.xyz. We're not as popular on Twitter. I've been more focused on building. I'll, get more into the tweeting thing once we have the product ready to go. And yeah, Max, that's where we at.
Very nice. We'll make sure to link all the links to DeFi Orbit and to your Twitter in the podcast description. I liked your point on the builder resources a lot. I think sort of Y Combinator content library optimized for Web3, that would be a tremendously helpful product. It's not even only on the builder side, it's also on the investor and user side, just to have sort of a start to finish guide how to get set up in the space. I mean, there's tons of tutorials out there how to create and set up your wallet, etc., how to navigate individual protocols, but it's still a lot of manual labor, a lot of sleuthing, a lot of searching around to find what you actually need and to get you from 0 to 1 in the space. So lots of opportunity there.
Actually, Max, one thing that I want to share on that, just to bring some extra value to your audience. If you want to learn more about like a YC library, the best resource that I found is 16Z Crypto. They do like a lot of free postings on things that you should be doing for your tokenomics, for your infrastructure, building your company. So A16Z has been the best one. But besides that, you're on your own. You gotta look everywhere for, some information, ask questions and all that stuff. But like, I guess it has to do with, how early we are,
The age of experimentation. It is
right?
what, but whoever gets it right has a lot of upside to capture. Davis, it was
Perfect.
absolutely amazing having you on. Best of success in the future
Thank you.
with building DeFi Orbit. Maybe once you're live, there will be a part two of this conversation. And personally,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
very excited to start trying out your tools to manage some of the positions that I run myself and that I advise on. So very much looking forward to that.
Perfect, Max. Thank you so much for having me. Has been a pleasure. Excited for what you guys are doing, and let's stay in touch. The future looks bright.
Absolutely. Was great having you on. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.